Hi guys, how's it going? Ivano here, and today we are talking about the Medicine Operative. And as always, there's also a written version of this guide available on my Substack, so check out the link in the description if you prefer to read. Medicine is the healing discipline of the operative class. Its playstyle revolves around healing over time, and it's the only healer which has access to stealth. Longtime players will remember the days when operative heals were the kings of war zones and arenas with powerful healing output and abilities such as Infiltrate, Flashbang, and a low cooldown hard stun which allowed for offensive playmaking. Unfortunately, those days are long gone, and Medicine has suffered in Legacy of the Sith, losing more of its power in 7.0 compared to Sorcerer or Mercenary healers. Nevertheless, if played right, the class is still capable of providing great group heals. For your tactical, you have three options. Critical Surgery makes your surgical probe always crit if used on a target below 50% HP. This is nice since you will be using the surgical probe frequently to refresh your Kolto probes. But since surgical probe doesn't heal very much anyway, outside of the auto crit you get every 18 seconds after using Kolto infusion, the additional value you get from this tactical is rather small. Diagnostics probe is another option. It makes surgical probe reduce the activation time of your Kolto injection, which is your big heal. This is nice for PvP, since you can often be rudely interrupted when trying to cast it in order to save your teammates or yourself from being bursted. And so that's why I personally prefer running Diagnostics probe over Critical Surgery. Augmented Holocom gives you a second use of Holo Traverse, which is a movement ability that breaks roots and gives you movement speed. Also, it can be used on teammates, so the second charge can sometimes mean the difference between getting one shot and barely escaping with your life. So even though Augmented Holocom does not directly buff your heals, if you're dead, you're not healing anyone either. So this one might be your best choice, especially if you're playing without a tank. The first legendary implant for this build is Tactician, which grants you 10% critical hit chance if you have a tactical advantage. As a healer, you can have up to 3 stacks of tactical advantage, so you should be able to almost always keep this buff up. Needless to say, this is a great buff to your heals, so you always want to run this one. For your second legendary, I recommend running Aggressive Treatment, which turns your Toxic Haze into your second best AoE heal. More healing is always good, and as Medicine, the range of your Toxic Haze will be increased to 30 meters, so you can use it from a safe distance. For your stats, you want to get your Alacrity rating to around 2150. This will lower your global cooldown to 1.4 seconds and make your healing over time effects tick faster. For this, you need 1 Alacrity enhancement, your 2 legendary implants, and 3 superior or golden Alacrity augments. Once you have that, you want to get your critical rating to around 4800. To reach that, you need 6 critical enhancements, the earpiece, and 11 superior critical augments. Since heals can't miss, of course you don't need any accuracy as a healer in PvP. Talking about the build, at level 23, Kolto Burst used to be the go-to choice before it got nerfed. I was never a big fan of the playstyle of standing in the middle of 8 people and spamming Kolto injection on yourself. And while this is still the best option for AoE, I prefer running Kolto Stim instead for a bit better single target healing. Level 27, Clever Countermeasures is not bad, since 6 seconds of evasion is almost as good as what Lethality has. But I prefer Debilitate because not only can the 4-second hard stun save your ass versus annoying melee DPS, it can also be used offensively to help your team secure kills. At level 39, Critical Nanotech is a big boost to your best AoE heal, and the other 2 options don't really come close. Level 43, for maximum HPS, you want Tactical Effectiveness. But since Medicine struggles with burst healing, I prefer Stim Burst for a nice 15 seconds of 15% extra healing. Tactical Overdrive gives you a reset on a couple of abilities and a nice buff to Mastery. If it would reset the cooldown of Holo Traverse, maybe I would take it, but in its current form, it's not going to save your ass and the cooldown of 3 minutes is just too long. At level 51, advanced cloaking can be an option, but I prefer to stay in the fight as long as I can, and the 5% damage reduction from chem-resistant inlays helps with that. Level 64, Med Shield makes your shield probe heal for about 40 to 50k when it breaks, which is some nice free HPS. Evasive Screen can be better in some situations where you need to cloak out and don't have evasion to purge dots. Level 68, Holo Traverse is just too good to pass up. While Flashbang is another strong option versus melee, especially because it now comes with the Flash Powder 20% accuracy debuff, being able to escape a sticky situation with Holo Traverse beats it in most games. And finally, at level 73, we pick up Evasive Imperative, because other than Cloaking Screen, evasion is your only real defensive cooldown, so having it available more often is good. Okay, let's talk about how to heal. Operative healing starts about 30 seconds before the Warzone gates even open, and that's because you need to apply 2 stacks of Culto Probes to everyone before the fighting starts. Yes, your teammates will run out of range, probes will fall off, but the first fight is often the most important one, so you need to give your team the best chances right out of the gate. Alternatively, you can just probe yourself and then use your stealth to get to a safe position before the first engagement. Once you are in the fight, you need to focus on keeping your probes up. Culto Probes healing over time is powerful, but if you are just starting to apply Culto Probes as you see your teammates' health dropping in the ops frame, it might already be too late. As Medicine, you need to be more proactive compared to Sorc or Mercenary heal, which is why, unless you are about to die in the next couple of seconds, your highest priority should always be to maintain 2 stacks of Culto Probes on everyone in range. Once you get them to 2 stacks, you can refresh the effect by casting Culto Infusion, Surgical Probe, or of course another Culto Probe. Surgical Probe costs the least energy, so that's preferable, but it also consumes a stack of Tactical Advantage, so make sure you don't drop to 0 stacks, which is an HPS loss because of Tactician's package. Recuperative Nanotech is an AoE heal over time that can heal for more than 100k per activation. Those are of course crazy numbers, so whenever it's off cooldown, press that button. Sometimes you need to decide between letting probes drop off or delaying Nanotech slightly, and in most cases I would still prefer to keep up the probes first, but if you can hit Nanotech into 4 low HP teammates, it can take priority. Toxic Haze is my third priority. If you place it well and your team can avoid the unstoppable urge to immediately run out of the area of effect, Haze's HPS is higher than Culto Waves. Additionally, since it's mostly used on lethality, enemy players might not realize that you are in fact a healer. Whereas the green circle of Culto Waves is a great way to draw a bunch of random aggro. Culto Infusion is not a bad heal and can be your 4th priority, to be used mostly for triage healing a teammate who is taking burst damage. It consumes a Tactical Advantage, so also make sure you don't drop to 0. Finally, Culto Injection will yield your biggest crits, but the long cast time and high energy cost make it only worth using with stacks of Diagnostics Probe, or if whoever you're healing is about to run out of HP before your Culto Probes can do their job. Finally, some gameplay tips, and if there are only 2 things you take away from this guide, those should be: stay safe and keep up your Culto Probes. Because remember, you are not a mercenary who can face tank 6 DPS players for a minute. Neither are you a sorcerer who has Phase Walk and Bubble, so once your CC Breaker and Vanish are gone, you are as survivable as a fish on land. Meaning, unless you have guard, find a safe space next to a pillar, and if anyone hits you, kick them in the nuts with Debilitate, roll around the corner, and break line of sight. But tip number 2 is almost even more important, and it is to keep up your Culto Probes even if it means letting a teammate die. Now, obviously you'd prefer not to let your teammates die, but the reality is you cannot save them all, especially since DPS players tend to chase the enemy ranged behind pillars or simply jump out of 30 meters range every opportunity they get. Remember what Obi-Wan said: the worst thing you can now do is to follow those foolish DPS players, thereby becoming the greater fool. In doing so, you put yourself into a bad position, which will get you CC'd and bursted, meaning you need to stealth out. Your probes drop, which means now your whole team is low, and the teammate you tried to save probably died anyway. Instead, stick to the plan and keep up those Kolto probes. Last but not least, if plan A fails, and you find yourself needing to cast Kolto Infusion or Injection, using both charges of your roll will give you interrupt immunity for 4 seconds, which can be enough to get some clutch casts off. That's all for this guide, guys. If you have a question, leave them in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.